about 12 years in was about the time our marriage started to heal, because I recognized my primary role as a man is to protect her, to provide for her, and to connect with her. I had not been doing 30% of my job. The idea of you falling in love is kind of comical. Like, we just fell in love, like love's a hole. Like we just we just fell in love. But it's even more impressive when people fall out of love. Like, no, you didn't fall in love. You didn't fall out of love. You turned your love on and you turned your love off.
Right.
That's what happened there. Having a strong community of healthy men around you as a young man is really what it's going to take to point you in the right direction. Otherwise, you'll...
We have none other than Danny Silk in the studio with us today.
Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Here he is.
Danny, thanks so much for joining us. And for the record, you wouldn't know this, but whenever we go around and speak, I'm like, Ellis was raised in such a happy, healthy family. And I was raised by like a family of psychics. We just walked around reading each other's minds.
Boom.
Like, there wasn't much communication. So whenever I read your book, Keep Your Love On, it was revelation to me. I was like, wait a second, we're allowed to say these things? And so I do. I thank you for Keep Your Love On. It's been a tremendous help in my life. And I know for many of our listeners, but not all of our listeners know who you are. So, babe, why don't you kind of kick us off?
Yeah. What we're really stoked to dive into today is just kind of the challenges of relational dynamics. And, not everybody has the same starting place. Some people, maybe they have an awesome, squeaky clean story from the very beginning and it's great all the way through. I kind of doubt that's anyone's story. But
Not many.
Not many. But you and Sherry really have a story of coming from a place of immense challenge into a place of immense health. And so I'd really love for you to just kind of take us back to the beginning.
Oh my gosh. Back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Not that far.
Well, I mean, if you want to go back that far, it's your
As he
prerogative.
unpacks his biography, he's got to dust off the hieroglyphics.
There you go. There you go. We go back into brokenness, really, just family brokenness. Both our parents and Sherry's stepfather. So if you include 5 people, they represent 15 marriages. They've each been married 3 times. And so there's our example of here's how you do it. This is called marriage. Different children from different marriages. Sherry has 6 brothers, 3 stepbrothers, 3 natural brothers. I have a younger brother. And, we combined that counsel and advice on top of 12 years into our marriage. Bill Johnson informed us that there was a Post-it note on our Taylor-Johnson compatibility assessment.
So you took this assessment prior to getting married?
We had one premarital counseling session with Bill.
Oh, that's all we needed for our all the baggage we were bringing into marriage.
He didn't even ask. Yeah. We took an assessment, and then on the second time, we went over the assessment. And we were at his house one day, 12 years in, and Sherry and I were bickering about something, and he slaps his knee and says, "That reminds me of that note that was on your assessment." And we both looked at him and said, "What note?" He goes, "Remember that note that the psychologist wrote on your assessment?" Like, "What note?" And then from the kitchen, Benny says, "Bill, you didn't tell them?" He goes, "I can't believe I forgot." Huh. Wow, the first time in 10 years I've been sending this assessment off to this psychologist. I get it back, I open it up, and there's the assessment. I go over it with the couple. I pulled yours out, and there was a Post-it note on it. And it said, "Bill, do whatever you can to stop this marriage."
Wow.
Because Sherry and I are clinically incompatible.
Like we've got doctors and evidence to prove that we are the
Incompatible.
poster children for incompatibility.
Incompatible, and this last June was 40 years together.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Danny. Whenever you and Sherry were dating, What really drove you guys to get married? Was it just this pure attraction? We're young, it's there, or
lust? It was all lust.
Okay, I mean, like, let's call it how it is.
Yeah. We dated 3 months
Wow.
and got married.
The Bible says if you're burning, and so you
we were
took
lighting
that to
things
heart.
on fire around us.
It was, we're like, we need a fireplace quickly.
Yeah, we both got saved at 21. We had some momentum going into this celibacy thing.
Yeah.
We were like,
Not for us.
We don't even know how to do it.
Well, let me ask you this relationally. I know 12 years in, you find out, okay, we were clinically incompatible. But at the time, in the moment, what would you say relationally were some of y'all's biggest challenges or unhealthy dynamics that were in play?
Just getting along. Yeah, we just didn't get along. We were really, really having a hard time from the get-go,
Yeah.
So but chaos and arguing and disconnection, all that was normal.
Right.
That was normal family life. And so we were right on track. But we were surrounded by people who did covenant relationship, which we'd never seen before. We'd never seen anybody that knew how to build a loving relationship, that knew how to bring peace into their homes. And so we're visiting all these homes, and it kind of feels like we're at a unicorn farm or something. Like, there's a pink one. Oh, there's a lime green one. Oh my gosh. This is so unusual to see mother and father raising their children to adulthood.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, like, you're the only two parents these kids have?
Now, was there a part of you that thought, is this a show? Like, are they just like cleaning up because we're over here? Or is this actually the way they live? Like, when did it dawn on you that these people were living an actual life that was very far from your reality?
I mean, it was clear to me that this was how they lived and who they were. I'd just never seen it before.
Right.
Yeah.
I hadn't been around people that raised their children to adulthood.
Danny, whenever you first started seeing, these healthy dynamics, and you're being faced with the reality that it's so far from the way that you and Sherry are living your relationship, what are some of the early things that you started doing maybe within yourself as you're processing your own marriage to say, how can we do something more like that? How can we live in that kind of way?
Bill and Benny were pretty covert about their marriage dynamics. It was like you just didn't see it. You just saw them get along and their family, and then they had 5 and 6 generations on both sides of ministers. So that was like, I'm not sure what Jesus's life looks like, but it's got to look something like that.
Kind of untouchable.
They're kind of like, okay, there's Jesus and his wife over there, and then there was Chris. I have Chris as a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I met Chris when I was 16. And he was 23. So you can just imagine a 23-year-old Chris Valentin. That's the guy who's trying to share the gospel with me, right? And I'm like, get away from me.
Salvation wasn't an option.
Well, it wasn't happening. I didn't get saved till I was 21. So I fended off Chris for 5 years, which is kind of a claim to fame.
I mean, he is truly a bull in a china shop.
he is coming at you, and he used to tell me that I have to come to church to get my paycheck, hey.
So you worked with him.
I worked with him. Yeah. He and my boss were both believers, and I was living with my girlfriend at 16. I was selling pot. I was working, just to survive. I had a very different life than either of those guys. And as I digressed or whichever it was, I just realized at 21, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm on the same path that my parents are on. I'm going to do the same thing. And so I remember and the Lord had put some other people in my life, Jerry and Linda Cluse, that I worked with at a grocery store where I was a meat cutter. And I remember going to the 76 station and asking Chris, how do you go to church? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, they're not just going to let me walk into a church, right? He says, yeah, they will. I'll meet you in the parking lot. I said, okay. So he met me in the parking lot and went in, and Bill preaches the message. Bill did everything. Bill welcomed everybody. Bill preaches the message. Bill does the offering. Bill led worship. Bill was the ministry team. A little tiny church, and Bill did it all. And then everybody's leaving, and I'm just standing there. And I walked up to the front, and I said, hey, Chris, I want to do the thing. He goes, what thing? I go, I don't know. Isn't there some thing you do when you come to church? He goes, you want to get saved? I go, I don't know.
If that's the thing,
he says, Bill,
sure.
come here. So Bill comes over, and me and my buddy, we held hands with Chris and Bill leads us to Jesus, and Chris was there.
Right.
Chris was
Yeah.
there, but he he's
The North Star.
so I mean, in that group of people was people that taught us that we're not giving up.
Yeah.
We're not giving up. And it's excruciating to be so disconnected in your marriage for so long and to not understand how to get what they have.
Right.
It's excruciating. The pain, the anxiety, and the hopelessness that this is how it's always going to be.
Right.
So I think it was really the example of those people. I can't credit that enough.
Right.
Having the right people around you, because we had a whole family stacked with people who would have said, move on, get a new one, get a different one. We did. It worked for us. No, it didn't. And that commitment to stay in there, to keep growing, it really came from me going to school and, just learning about ways to help other people. I have a social work degree, so I was learning how to help other people. Then I would come home and I wasn't sure how to help myself.
Right.
So that mixed with wonderful people that raised the bar on covenant relationship.
This statistic honestly blows my mind a little. 89.5% of the people who watch or listen to this podcast regularly aren't yet subscribers to the show. So before we dive in, could I ask you one thing? If this podcast has ever helped you, if you care about honest, unfiltered conversations around God's design for sex, dating, and relationships, would you hit subscribe? It's free and it helps us more than you know. And our promise to you is this: we'll do everything in our power to make this show the best it can be. We'll take your feedback, we'll keep answering your toughest questions, and there's no conversation around God's design for sex and relationships that we'll shy away from. Thank you.
Would you say that there was an inciting incident within your marriage that really sparked you to pursue health on a greater level?
12 years in, it was right around that same time we had that conversation with Bill. Sozo came to town, inner healing, a type of, really just asking Jesus questions in a counseling setting. And kind of shockingly to me, Sherry said, I'll do it. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're gonna go get some help? Hallelujah. I mean, if anybody needs some help, you, raised by wolves, need some healing.
I'm sure this is a very accurate conversation.
Yeah. So
12 years in.
she goes and 3-hour deal, comes home. I said, so how was it? And she says, it was good. And Sherry's a verbal processor, so it's good isn't,
Something's going
Isn't
on.
she's not telling me anything.
Yeah.
So later, she says, well, the Lord really showed me that I've never felt protected. And I'm thinking, for sure. I mean, you were raised by wolves, you got
Yeah.
6 brothers, a crazy stepdad. She says, I've never felt protected by you. What? What? How did I get in your Sozo, right? Like, I am the victim here. I'm the one who has to put up with your anger and your screaming and yelling. And I was raised by Casper the ghost. What? I was so blown up because I really had made her the bad guy, and I was the victim. And
the stories we tell ourselves.
I pushed all responsibility for this disconnect her direction. And the Lord really, really talked to me right there and said, did you hear what I said? And I said, I heard what she said.
Yeah.
She said, I'm the problem. And he said, did you hear what I said? And I finally said, oh my gosh, in all these years, I have never one time thought about protecting Sherry. I protect myself and I protect everybody else. And that began a journey of completely adjusting where responsibility went for the choices that I made, the being a powerful person. I was pushing responsibility away, blaming her, and acting powerless when actually I had all the power to manage myself, and I wasn't using it. And mixed with, just some training of how relationships work, I began to realize she's not angry. She's scared.
Yeah.
She's hurt. She feels powerless. And I can say it now, that succinctly, but I began to realize I have a very different response to somebody who I think is hurt than I do who is angry. I have a very different response to someone I think is scared or powerless than I do anger. So I just began to move towards her in those moments. She didn't believe me, so she kept poking me with a stick, get me to abandon her again, and I didn't. I just kept moving forward. So about 12 years in was about the time our marriage started to heal, because I recognized my primary role as a man is to protect her, to provide for her, and to connect with her.
Wow.
And I had not been doing 30% of my job.
Now, it's an incredible revelation that you had, of protecting your wife and how the fear and love dynamic was taking place. How long do you think, once you started that journey of connection and of protection and providing, how long would you say that transition took? Because you guys had an entire lifetime of practicing disconnection and a safe distance, and that it's not a light switch. So what did that journey look like for you?
Well, when I'm done, I'll let you know.
All right, moving on.
Yeah. It's lifelong, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you find new ways to be afraid of her. You find new ways to protect yourself. You find new ways to need courage. So, I mean, that's still happening. They're around totally different things now, but I would say that's the journey. The journey is trying to get to the courage.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to get to the confidence, but the courage is what takes you to confidence. Diarrhea takes you to courage, right?
That's what they say.
So you really got to get there, and it's just part of life.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. You guys came from a different generation where, you got married very quickly because it seemed like we don't want to compromise, our newly found morals. So we're going to jump into marriage. Then we got married, we're sticking together because that's what we chose to do. That's what maybe in your mind, that's what Christians do. We
have good examples.
Yeah.
of
And
that.
we've got good examples, but it never felt easy. It never felt, it wasn't just fluid. And so, we come from a generation, or maybe even a little younger than me, where it's like, we're not committing. Like we're not getting into marriage. People are getting married older and older. People aren't getting married, to the same level that they used to. And I think it's because, people are plagued with this idea of, I don't want to marry the wrong one. How do you, if you were looking at you and Sherry's relationship, and you saw the disconnection and fear and stuff, it would have been easy, kind of like, your family said, oh, you just married the wrong one. So how do you equate relational ease and this is right? Or relational ease, this is difficult, but it's still right. How do you know that, essentially they're the right one?
Yeah, this is the same generation covered in tattoos, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, how do you know you get the right tattoo?
It's on your body.
Yeah, for a long time, I think that you're not looking for the right one as much as you're trying to be the right one. And as long as you're with someone who you enjoy, and that would be my top advice to anybody is make sure that you enjoy this person. And that is, and for anybody that's in a marriage right now that's struggling, I would say change your tactic to enjoying this person. Bring that with you. Because if you're not bringing, I intend to enjoy you, then we're not going to have a friendship. You don't have any friends that you don't enjoy. And this covenant lifelong relationship of marriage and children and that sort of thing is, it is essential that you enjoy this, or you are going to end up acting like a victim, stuck in a situation that you can't do anything about. And it's not true. You can't. That just changing the goal
right
of enjoying this person has changed the quality of a relationship between two incompatible people.
Right.
You don't get to you don't get to choose your children. So, that's why I think it's the idea of you falling in love is kind of comical. Like we just fell in love, like love's a hole. Like we just walk in, we just fell in love. But it's even more impressive when people fall out of love. Like, well, we just fell out of the
gravity.
hole. We fell out of the hole. Like, no, you didn't fall in love. You didn't fall out of love. You turned your love on and you turned your love off.
Right.
That's what happened there. Just like with your children. You don't get to pick them. Like, oh, this isn't the right one. Send it back. This isn't the right one. No, you're going to figure that out.
Right.
And then you're going to figure this one out and you're going to figure that one out. And they're all going to be different. And that's part of you maturing as a person and maturing your love, is you take full responsibility for what you do with this relationship. And it starts in marriage. It really is. You as close as you could, you chose this one. You picked this one out. Okay, I'll take her. Well, once you choose her, it is now your job to provide, protect, and connect with her. That's what you said you're going to do. If you're not ready to do that, then you're not ready for marriage. And I think that back to having a strong community of healthy men around you as a young man is really what it's going to take to point you in the right direction. Otherwise, you'll look to your peers who are doing a terrible job.
Right.
Or maybe the brokenness of your past, and they did a terrible job. So you think, well, I'm scared of doing a terrible job. Like, right. You probably will until you surround yourself with people who are doing a good job.
Right.
Danny, you mentioned that a lot of things started to change when you moved out of a self-protection mode. You had this narrative of, I am the victim. I am protecting myself from this person who I'm married to. And so much changed when your motivation was no longer to protect yourself. That sounds so good in theory. But how do you do that on a practical level in a moment of conflict where you're like, I don't know how to not protect myself. I don't know how to choose connection in a moment like this.
Well, it's language like that really helps. You know, like, I choose you. My goal with you is connection. I understand that my role is to protect you. So if, you know, there's a crash downstairs in the middle of the night, I don't wake. It's just nothing in me that suggests wake Sherry up and send her down. You know, there's just no thought in my head. I mean, I'm looking for weaponry and I'm going. And you stay here, and if you hear bad stuff and I'm not shouting in victory, call the cops. You know, whatever. I mean, I'm headed down. That's in me. It's in my wiring to be that guy. I have to defy myself to act like a chicken, to act like somebody's going to hide behind my wife. So I have to understand that is masculine strength that I bring. Now, present me with a scary woman, and I want to run, you know, or fight, either way. But if I understand my job, then it calls on a deep part of me to courageously choose a different response than the one that my feet are talking to me about. You know?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to stand here. I don't know what to do, but I'm going to learn how to not feel like this again. I'm going to learn to do something different. I'm going to talk to one of these guys. I'm going to say, what do you do? And they're going to have some great idea. Or I'm just going to be paying attention to, I need a solution to this problem.
Right.
And I think that over time, I will learn. You know, if I had a Volkswagen. I had a 65 Volkswagen when I was a young man. And I learned how to rebuild that engine.
Come on.
You know, I had mechanics around me, and they would tell me, do that. Well, don't do that again. Well, now you broke that, you know. Okay, you got to start over. And and then I built it again by myself. So I will figure out this problem.
Right.
Over time.
Right.
Once I understand it's my job.
You know, for many of our listeners, maybe some of this is new information, the whole, you know, fear versus love dynamic, and provide, protect, and, you know, all of these things. How, for someone who's maybe not in a community where they can obviously tell that, you know, their relational health isn't there, what are some things that they could recognize in their own relationship that might indicate that they're walking in fear, or that they're living the relationship fearfully?
Blame. That you give yourself permission to have a bad guy. You know, that because as soon as you introduce a bad guy, you can now have a victim.
Right.
You know, so she's the bad guy. He's the bad guy, and I'm the victim. And victims are responsible for nothing. I just get out of jail free card. Pick nothing up. Nothing's required of me.
No responsibility.
I push it out here, and a good guy comes, and the good guy comes and takes up my responsibility and takes on the bad guy. And that might be my mom. That might be my older brother. That might be a counselor, you know, whoever. As soon as you have a bad guy, you now have a dysfunctional dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be two powerful people that are working together to meet the needs of one another and the needs of their situation. You know, you have to have two powerful people. You can't have a powerful bad guy and a powerless victim. That will never equate into health.
What do you think are the markers of a powerful person?
A powerful person is somebody that can tell themselves what to do and they'll do it. They have self-control. They embrace their responsibilities and they let other people know what they'll be doing. So I'd be glad to have this conversation with you as long as it's respectful. No problem. Maybe we can try later. Exit stage left, and there I go. And the farther your ears get from their mouth, the better you feel. And you've just mastered being a powerful person. Because I'm responsible for every disrespectful relationship I participate in. So if I find myself in a disrespectful exchange over and over and over and over again, I realize, oh my gosh, you know, the contributing factor that messes up my life in these disrespectful exchanges is my participation. If I just remove myself the second it got disrespectful, this disrespectful conversation would end for me.
Yeah.
You're stepping on some toes here, Danny.
What does that look like whenever, you know, you have to go to bed with that person? And this is not Ellis, but I'm saying some people are.
I don't know. Maybe it is. Counsel.
Yeah.
Some people, Danny, glad you're here today. No, but some people might hear this and be like, that's my spouse. That's what I've got to get out. I've got to disconnect, get out of this relationship because my participation in it is what's causing this.
Yeah. Well,
Different set of rules.
the first time it happens, you know, you truly are a victim. You did not see that happening. You didn't see it coming. You didn't catch it. Boom. Second, third, fourth, 90th time it happens, you're a volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
You've decided to participate in that for you fill in the blank why. Well, we have kids. I don't have any money. I can't live. I'm a Christian. I can't fail. I can't. You got 9,000 reasons why you're now going to volunteer for this abusive relationship. Mm. Okay, well, as long as you own that, then there you go. But most people don't. Most people blame the other person for their participation in that dysfunction.
You know, I feel like someone in your shoes who's walked through this, who's experienced the change, who has an entire revelation on healthy relationships. As you look at others who are where you were, you know, if you could just distill it to like, because, you know, you're like, I'm begging, kind of like Chris whenever, you know, before you knew the Lord, you know, come pick up your paycheck at the church, you know. What do you want to say to these couples who are experiencing immense disconnection with that same, like, here's the one thing I could just give to you that I'm telling you, if you do this, it's going to change your life, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we have a whole system, right? Keep Your Love On is a book that I wrote that is, it's kind of a manual on how to become a powerful person, how to communicate, how to set boundaries. It's essential. If you don't know how to do those three things, then jump on that merry-go-round because you're going to be on it a while.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And the only thing that really changes is your age. You're just older now. You've just been doing it longer. And it makes it more challenging because you have more excuses as to why to stay in it.
Right.
You know, we have the Kylo Show podcast. Kylo means keep your love on. One guy pointed out to me it also means kill your loved ones. So, you know, keep your love on is Kylo.
It is what you make of it. It certainly is what you make of it.
And we have the Kylo University, which is a 16-week course that you can jump in, and the testimonies of absolute transformed life of 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, we had this lady that we were just on this tour, and she said, I've been married for over 35 years. I've been disconnected from my husband the whole time. He's brilliant, and it's just been a miserable existence. I questioned my character for decades. We got into Kylo University. I learned all this stuff, and I started changing. And our relationship started to change. And in that time, we found out that he's on the spectrum, and that he is so sensitive, and he is so deep down inside there. And she said, but because of the changes I was making, I created a safe place, and he came out and met me. And now we have the relationship I couldn't have even fantasized about having.
Wow.
Wow. I love that, whenever you were walking through this, you just kind of had to peer at your community and be like, how do I get that? But if you're listening to this and you're walking through these, complicated relational dynamics, there is so much help available now. There's so much more information available. And so I want to highlight Danny's website, lovingonpurpose.com. If you haven't read his book, Keep Your Love On, it's a brilliant, kind of like you said, manual to relationships. And of course your podcast, and you guys are releasing episodes all the time.
All the time. We just took it on the road, and the Kylo Show Live is actually live this time.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
I love it. Danny, if you could leave our audience with just one piece of wisdom, maybe something that you see in the next generation that you're like, if they could just grasp this, or something maybe you wish you would have had when you were younger, what would that be?
Oh gosh, if I had a pill that I could give
Keep talking.
And it helped you take personal responsibility.
Yeah.
That's what I would give everybody.
Yeah.
Because until you realize that you have the power to control yourself, you are so tempted to look for a bad guy to blame.
Right.
And we live in bad guy generation. We live in social media that I think the sole purpose of social media is to help us find bad guys and then accommodate victims who are irresponsible and are never going to get out of that dynamic.
Right. Wow.
I've never heard it said like that, but it makes perfect sense.
And maybe even a good next step for someone listening is to get off social media for a bit, because of that mindset that's so pervasive that we almost don't even realize that we're taking it in. And if we could just shut out the outside noise for a little while and learn how to take some personal responsibility, we'd be headed in the right direction.
Babe, you do that so well. You take personal responsibility so well. You're such a powerful person. I get better every day I'm married to you.
Oh my gosh, whatever.
Danny, thanks so much for joining us today.
So great to
We're
be with
so
you guys.
grateful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're doing such a great job. You guys really are doing such a great job.
We appreciate it.
Well
We're
done.
standing on your shoulders. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to the Let's Talk About It podcast by Moral Revolution. Once again, check out all of Danny's resources. The link is in the bio. And until next time, we'll see you later.
We know this podcast isn't just a show. It's a conversation that's changing lives. If anything you've heard here, or in one of our courses, videos, or resources, has helped you break free from sexual sin, date more intentionally, or build stronger, healthier, more godly relationships, would you let us know? Drop a comment, send us a message. We would love to hear your testimony. And when you share it, it not only encourages us, but it might just help someone else realize that they're not alone. Thanks for being part of this movement.